Welcome back to Lift You Up Inspiring Health Stories. I'm your host, Tamika Bickham. I'm the founder and chief storyteller of TB Media Group. But for the purpose of this podcast, I am your health and happiness matchmaker. Now, before I introduce you to today's guest, you know what I'm going to ask you to do? Hit subscribe right there on YouTube, turn on those notifications, and connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to stay connected with you. Now, today we are talking about 10 miles of open space in the city of Miami, $140 million of public money raised. Programming, public art, and outdoor space all meet here. We're talking about The Underline and going one-on-one with its founder, Meg Daly. Our physical, mental, and emotional health is not just a want, it is a need for happy lives and prosperous businesses. Lift You Up is the podcast where we share inspiring health stories from business owners who are fulfilling their purpose to live their healthiest lives and helping you do the same. From former TV reporter to marketing entrepreneur and content creator, I care about sharing stories that matter and stories that connect us. I'm your host, Tamika Bickham, your health and wellness matchmaker. Well, today I am so excited to meet for the first time virtually. We were just talking about how nice it is to connect in person, which hopefully will not come too long after. Meg Daly, nice to see you here.
Nice to see you, Tamika. Thank you so much for asking me to be on your show. It's a pleasure. And yes, we are going to meet over coffee or tea or maybe even a glass of wine on the underline someday.
There we go. Now you're speaking my language.
Now I'm dangling a carrot, so watch out.
Speaking of the underline, Meg is the founder, president, chair of the board of directors of Friends of the Underline. And I figure a good place to start is for those who don't know what the underline is, to tell us a little bit more about the underline.
Sure, thank you. Well, it started, 7 years ago. I had a bike accident and broke both of my arms. And yes, so for an A type of person,
Whoa, you just came out of the gate with that. Like, I had no idea. Oh my gosh.
oh, it's just
Wow.
one of those like when you get lemons, make lemonade stories.
Yeah.
And I'm such an A-type personality. I've been an entrepreneur for many, many years. And this was probably one of the most humbling moments of my life that I couldn't do anything for myself. We actually had to get a caregiver for me because you can't do much without your arms. I live near the Metrorail in Coral Gables. And after about a couple of months of healing, I had to get to physical therapy in Coconut Grove, which is just, 2 miles north of me, and got off at the Grove station and then walked below the Metrorail. And, there was something about, slowing down and walking and not driving by it, that it gave you a deeper appreciation for the space and the potential and the opportunity. And that's when I was like, hey, let's just turn it into a big park. I mean, seriously, it was just like this crazy idea. And I just started talking to people about it. I have this crazy idea. And they were like, no, it's not so crazy. That's actually a really good idea. And so fast forward to today, the Underline is a 10-mile park and trail and art and community destination below Metrorail from the Miami River to Dayland South. It's 120 acres of urban reforestation and places to play and recreate, walk and bike, and or just hang out.
Was it the accident that really got you starting to think about this green space? Like, what did it happen in that area, or was it really because you were walking back and forth to
I
Coconut Grove?
think there was something to be said for to the humility of not being able to do anything for myself and being so reliant on others. It was sort of like seeing the world with a different set of glasses. Like instead of saying, "Oh, that's blighted and ugly and how terrible that is and all this trash that's here and I feel unsafe." It was sort of like, "Wow, we have an opportunity to make something beautiful." And sort of the second part of that equation is that I really do believe that green spaces and public spaces and parks are the green soul of a city. And I think that Miami has a long way to go in that. Like if you go to a New York or you go to a San Francisco or Chicago, they're older cities that planned those parks as not, an afterthought, that it was a
Right.
necessity for humanity.
I would say Miami is not really the city I think of when I think of green cities or green spaces, I should say. And even, there's been so much conversation around like it's not a bike friendly city and all of these things and how congested the roads are. So it's nice to see this happening when you think of you mentioned New York, and the first thing that comes to my mind is something like the High Line, or in Atlanta, the Belt Line. Um, so I was just reading your bio and seeing that your position with the underline is completely volunteer, uh, which, knowing that this all started 7 years ago and seeing where things are now, I mean, wow, what you have accomplished. Um, Tell me about your passion behind the project and really making it all come to life, and what keeps you going as a volunteer.
I mean, I think that's a great question, and I hope your listeners don't think I'm absolutely out of my mind for doing this full time for free for 7 years. I come from a family that, were sort of activists. When I was a kid, had a big family, and if we wanted to save something, we had to get petitions signed, and had a younger brother who was seriously disabled. So my parents got into the law around mobility issues for persons with disabilities, Save the Biltmore, Save Bird Road from being a highway. My dad was the founder of the Performing Arts Center. They were heavily involved in historic preservation programs around equity, inclusion, so, there was just, that was just kind of our identity. But I never had anything in my work experience that allowed me to really tap into that, because I was an entrepreneur and a mother and a sister and a daughter, and it was a lot to lift, and I think a lot of working moms understand that. And when I had the idea for the underline, what happened was I immediately found a community of people who cared and they're passionate about this place. And I sort of felt like I was sort of this accidental resident, who didn't have a connection other than my direct family. And what keeps me going in this project every day is the accident of meeting incredibly beautiful people who are doing remarkable work, and the unsung heroes of the future of Miami.
It's so fun because I feel like Miami's still such a young and evolving city. And like, I feel like being an entrepreneur, just having a role in Miami, like, you can really help shape this city. Um,
Well, I think that's a great point, Tamika. One of the things my dad used to say was, if you go to New York and you have a big idea, Meg, he would say to me, you probably find a lot of reasons that people would say you can't do it. But Miami, I think, being so young, is that it's sort of like, sure, you're crazy. You want to take that on, you should go do it. But I think that's a strength in the city, is that, we tend to be more nimble and open to crazy ideas like mine. In terms of the people, doing incredible work. Very early on, I met with a woman from Baptist Health, and an elected official was like, "Oh, you have to meet this woman, Jessie Barron." And I'm like, "Well, I don't have anything to show her. Like, I'm just this idea." And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I have to get this person, and we have to do this, and we have to light this up, because this is all around our mission of really preventive care, of getting people more mobile, and sort of ambient movement, fighting obesity, diabetes, and heart disease." And so she was a believer. They were a believer. So this larger collective, the University of Miami, adopting us for vision exercises through the School of Architecture. And so, like, these friendships became like bigger and bigger and bigger. This project is led by Miami-Dade County, the transit department now. At least 90 of their staff in one way or another has worked on this project. So has the Parks Department, so has DERM, so has RER. By the way, they're all acronyms. They're all, um, the same people, all city of Miami, Coral Gables, South Miami, and we connect over the river. How do you connect over to the river into those other communities in Miami, like Overtown, and then up to Wynwood, and then going east, north, so it's sort of like all these people doing God's work in building a better place. A more recent partnership is with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and that happened through really serendipity. We did a program with the Miami Heat. We had just opened in February. We have an outdoor gym that has flex court soccer and basketball, and the Heat saw it. We had been chasing the Heat for 2 years. It was like this, this adorable guy, and they finally turned around and goes, "Oh, you're cute too." And, and so they were like, "We want to do our first in-person programs with our kids for junior NBA on the underline, and we're bringing Big Brothers Big Sisters with us." And that moment, I met Gail Nelson from Big Brothers Big Sisters, and we did basketball. And then I'm like, "Okay, kids, we're going to go look at the butterflies on the underline." And they saw monarch, they saw the caterpillar, they saw the butterfly, they saw the cocoon, many of them for the first time in their lives, that they felt like nature was accessible to them.
This all seems to have come together so beautifully. I know there was a lot of hard work involved in it. So you have an idea. How do you even start putting the pieces together of executing that idea?
Fair enough, right? Because you don't get to open without a lot of hardship in the middle. So I mentioned the School of Architecture at kind of adopted us, and that was important because it's hard for people to imagine this place. And I have pictures of before. I mean, it's dirt, it's unsafe, it's probably unhealthy, full of trash, lots of feces, and then how do you really make that beauty again? And so it was student work, and they did great work in helping people, getting not just to the why but the what. And then that, when you have something in your mind's eye, you can rally around it, right? And then we had to do the hard work of raising money, because you can't get permitted on student work. So we went through a request for proposals for design teams. We ended up with one of the best design teams, I think, in the world, the ones that did the High Line in New York. You mentioned them. They also participated at one point with the Atlanta Beltline. So those projects they're very good friends of ours. And then, you have to go get money. And, these projects of industrial reuse and infrastructure reuse, there is absolutely no one door that you can knock on to get your project built. Like, you want to build a highway, you know where to go. You go to FHWA or you go to DOT. With us, it's sort of like, I don't know, you're lots of things, right? So we ended up getting lots of different funding sources, federally, state, county, and municipal, all for construction, over $140 million. The last big grant we got in was a federal grant. Miami-Dade County had sort of had a pretty low batting average in bringing home some of these infrastructure grants. And so we got a lot of help from the county. These funds go to the county. So we're part of the design process, we're part of the advocacy, and then we become the operators once a segment is built. And so that was a $23 million grant that I was a co-author on, totally unqualified to write a very highly technical grant. Our pro bono attorney was also a co-author, and then our project manager at the county transportation department, Irene Hegedus. And what that grant did was pretty much completed. It was like our last tranche of funding, but it also set a timeline that the whole project, 10 miles, has to be done in 5 years.
What is it about this project that people have got, you think makes people get behind so fiercely, like volunteer their time and their efforts to really, I mean, this is a lot to make happen.
If we really want to invest in building a better city, we have to make this a multimodal place for everyone of all abilities to be able, and socioeconomic incomes, to be able to have the choice to walk, bike, take mass transit, get there faster than they would in their car, and to have that choice to not have to invest in, $8,000 a year in a car. But if it takes you longer to take the bus and the train and the walk and the bike than it does to hop in your car, then you're just going to, go to the most convenient, fastest solution. So what people have really routed around is we're one of the most dangerous places to walk and bike in the United States.
Really?
And all of the state of Florida, all the major metropolitan areas, Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, Miami. And we're pushing to the top of the list. So there are these people who really care about making it safe for kids to ride their bikes to school and making it safe for someone in a wheelchair to get across the street without feeling vulnerable to getting hit. To making sure that if I'm elderly or if I'm a mom in a stroller, that they feel like they should be able to walk and bike to where they want to go. And I am one of them, that I believe that that's a very important attribute to a great city. Number two is nature. So what these people really care about, and we have polled this. We have done, in our first master plan, we had 100 meetings. So this is not like we're going to a cave and we're like saying this is what you need. Everything we're doing is what people have consistently said they want. And if you're listening first and designing second, and then honoring their wishes third, then they're connected to your mission because they're part of your mission. And that is that's a really important thing to do. And I think that a lot of people forget that because it's not easy work. It's not easy to get people to your meeting. It's not easy to schedule a meeting. It's not easy to get people who don't want to talk to you. And it's not easy to listen to things you don't want to hear. Right? And so you have to be willing to be wrong, and you have to be willing to put other people's vision for your project first.
Was there something that you were wrong about, that you learned you were wrong about through listening, that surprised you?
One of the things was probably thinking it should all be a park and not necessarily trail driven, and we've flipped that. So the connective tissue is the trail. And the other thing that I think I was absolutely wrong on was that I thought I could just do it by myself. And so it was I'm just always used to doing things on my own and for myself. And and if it's my mistake, it's my mistake. And I have become incredibly humbled by learning how being comfortable, being uncomfortable, and getting outside of a very small area that I operate in.
I know you mentioned there's a tech master plan and also an art master plan. Can you tell us kind of what's ahead for the Underline?
But we think that there's more to this experience, and getting people to be part of, connecting to nature, resiliency, and also learning, sort of lifelong learning. What can we do so that when you're in a place, you're always sort of gathering something you can go home with. And we think technology can help us with that. So we're very fortunate with Miami-Dade County and the Wi-Fi provider called Hotwire Communications that will have free Wi-Fi for people who visit. And this is pro bono. This is truly pro bono. It will not be monetized by Hotwire, so it's really impressive. So we don't want this to be an app, right? Where you sort of just like, oh, I'm here, I'm there, and I know where to go. It needs to be more like, how can my experience be amplified and bettered by technology? So we engaged this incredible team from New York, and they collaborated with the founders of Sidewalk Labs, who sort of like imagined the smart cities movement. And then the other is an art master plan, which was envisioned by some pretty brilliant people, and from New York and Boston and Harvard and everything else, and even looking at landscape as a form of art. And so 3-dimensional, 2-dimensional, we're looking at we have a beautiful mural by an artist named Edny Jean-Joseph, telling the story of the Bahamians who were brought here to build Flagler's Rail, and using a Matisse cutout pattern. It's an 80-foot wide mural. It is not small. It was his first large commission, and it's really telling the story of those Bahamians who came here and made Miami their home. And we want this to be a 10-mile outdoor gallery, experiential. And we want art that you don't have to just look at, but you should play on. So there should always be play in everything we do. It's one of our core values is fun. And then we want to be a place for people to test, their own ideas. So we partnered with the Children's Trust, and we've launched a program for high schoolers to run the business of their dreams on the Underline. And so your listeners can come out on Saturdays, Sundays, and I believe we expanded the programs to Thursdays and Fridays. And these kids have a dual enrollment with Miami-Dade College for college credit as high schoolers. It's really been an adventure, trying to help them bring their businesses to life.
So tell me about that. Can you give me an example? Like you mean they're kind of pitching their businesses on on the weekends? Like how does that work? What does that look like?
We have a program through the Children's Trust. We got a grant, and it allowed us to build a cargo container retail space right out front of the Brickell Metrorail station. And then we had all these kids, these high schoolers, submit their best ideas for a business. And then kind of like Shark Tank style, we picked the short list. And these kids are very, very ambitious and very resilient and really smart. But I'm telling you, it's taxed our teeny little organization, because we're writing all their marketing material. We're there with them every day when they're open, and they're bringing in revenue, and they have a little stipend to cover for all their expenses. And we would like to expand that to experimental, maybe small businesses, minority owned, so that we can have everything from nature to technology to art to these programs to business. So it becomes more and more and more. So it's like a little contained moment of beauty.
When it comes to health, because that was something we briefly touched on earlier, and the health of people in a major city, how do green spaces or outdoor spaces like this play a role, and why are they so important?
Well, there's two prongs of health, physical and mental. And what the pandemic taught us is that we couldn't go anywhere. And so there was this hunger, this absolute pining to be outdoors again. So it was like outdoors were the new indoors. Bike sales were through the roof, and people were, dusting off their bikes, and kids are learning how to bike. And I hope that becomes sort of the new normal. And we demand not just the Underline, but other facilities across the county, like Plan Z, Ludlam Trail, connecting the Underline to two other projects called the Miami Loop. We need to demand these facilities, not just for ourselves and our own health, but future generations. I used to ride my bike to school, and I come from a family of 5, and my parents usually didn't know where I was, but they figured if my bike was gone, I was off somewhere, and I probably wouldn't hurt myself or others. And we live about, I don't know, less than a mile from Sunset Elementary. And my kids said, can I ride my bike to school? And I'm like, absolutely no way. And they said, why not? And I'm like, it's the drivers. But I've learned it's not the drivers, although Miami is notorious, but it's the way we built our city. Is we haven't built it for people to walk or bike safely. I mean, there's streets that don't have sidewalks. There are streets that don't have trees. There are streets that don't have facilities for us to bike. And that is the future of an urban world. Because if you're walking, you're biking, you're doing it ambiently, and you're not driving to CVS, you are healthier. And there is a huge body of work around that. So it is proven, it's statistically accurate and factual.
What would be your advice to maybe other budding entrepreneurs or small businesses as they face challenges?
I'm always very honest about the fact that I never feel qualified to do what I'm doing. And women really suffer from a real issue of not believing that they really belong at that table. We inherently don't believe that we belong at the place that we've earned that seat. right? So there's always this second guessing. There are some days where I'm like, what am I doing here? How can I possibly succeed? But I literally have to wipe my brain from negative thinking. And the more that you're mindful about negative thinking, the more mindful you are about positivity. And it's not like a poster you see on the wall, and that's not what, I'm going to have this thing on my refrigerator every day. It's literally checking in to how you're seeing yourself and how you're valuing your own work. And it has been a real test for me, even though I am an entrepreneur, even though I have had, enormous, luck and success, but it just seeps in. It's called imposter syndrome. But I also want to add that the reason I'm here is because of the help of so many, whether it be an elected official who believed, back in the day, Carlos Jimenez, Francis Suarez, Vince Lago. I mean, because those people, can make or break the project if they believe in that, in you or not. And so bringing your passion, bringing your vision to your storytelling is more powerful than anything you can do. But you have to believe, and you're not an imposter.
I just got chills. You're speaking my language. I love it. And that's such good advice too. It's good to remind ourselves of that. So thank you for that. And of course, before we go, I have to ask, how can people support The Underline, and how can they find you and learn more?
We have a website and we work hard at it. And if you see an error in it, please let us know at theunderline.org. And, you can also find us through Miami-Dade County. We're one of their priority projects. But they've believed in us and said, you guys can take the lead voice. Anyone can make a donation of any amount, but our currency is volunteerism. And we really believe in the skills that people bring to this project. We have everything from days in the dirt, where you can help us weed. You can help us. We're going to soon bring our health and wellness programs in person, we think by August. So, help us with checking in people, or if you have a special talent around yoga, you could back up our instructor. So there's so many ways to be part of this project and bring, meaningful value to your community through us.
Absolutely. I love that. And I'll make sure to link to the website. And I know you guys are also on social media. I've seen you on Instagram. Are you all the other places, Facebook?
It's all at the underline MIA.
Okay, perfect. So I'll make sure to link to all of that below as well, so everyone can find you, check you out. I know you have a great email newsletter, so they can stay up to date on everything you guys are doing, and also find you online. So that is perfect. Is there anything else, Meg? I really enjoyed this conversation with you. Is there anything else that you wanted to add that I didn't ask?
Yeah, I would love for people to tell us their ideas, because we're all about being better. And I talked about, the ideas in our master plan did not come from me. I mean, they came from the community. So if you want to talk to people who listen, please talk to us, because we believe in you.
I mean, it's everyone's city, right? We all have a role to play in shaping it how we want.
Yeah, and that's why, everyone's welcome here, because this is the project of many, not just one.
I hope you enjoyed learning more about The Underline. If you're like me and are in Miami or have visited Miami and have noticed that, hey, it's not really a city known for its green spaces, its walkability, or its bikeability. But we're here for the long haul, and we know and are excited to see that changes are coming. The way we move through this city is changing one step at a time with projects like The Underline. So make sure you go ahead, check them out, visit them, their website, connect with them on social media, and hey, if you're interested in donating, volunteering your time, they could really use your help. And also, hey, if you're not already, make sure you're connected with me. I'm on LinkedIn, YouTube. That's where you'll want to subscribe, turn on notifications so you don't miss another episode, and all of the other social media. You can find me there too. So until next week, when I see you right back here, stay happy, stay healthy.